So welcome everybody to the Vault. Thank you for coming out. I have wanted to do motivational style speaking since I was in high school. So about 20 years. It took me a minute to figure out what the heck I would talk about. But here we are, and so thank you for coming and helping me to meet a goal today. I really appreciate it. If you don't know me, I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Denise Kawaii, and I am a Portland native. Was born in Portland, raised in a basically middle-class family. My disabled mother had a substance abuse problem, and my father was emotionally abusive and manipulative, and that resulted in me being just a little bit of an overachiever. She does it. But in high school, I gave up on getting good grades so that I could work 3 part-time jobs to support my family after my dad left us. And then I went to college for 1 term and dropped out. And instead I decided to go get a job and earn as much money as possible so that I could prove. I cry when I am nervous, so bear with me. But I quit college and went to work to prove to myself and to my dad that I had some value. So somehow, against all those odds, I stand here today as a reasonably functional adult, and I'm a published author. My science fiction novel Adaline has been on the Kindle bestseller list since the end of the summer in genetic engineering and dystopian fiction. And my memoir, Woman with 1,000 Hats, has had a really positive impact on people from all walks of life. And my books have been read around the world, which is really cool. But despite all that, in between all of those accomplishments, getting out of a really bad family situation, entering the workforce and becoming a really stellar employee and an entrepreneur, writing books that people want to read, in between all those things, I failed a lot. And there are a lot of days where I feel like I'm an impostor. And so today's talk is as much for my benefit as it is for yours. Because I want all of us to feel less alone and less like imposters in our own lives. And I say we are going to do this talk together because I don't want to just talk at you for a half an hour. But I really want you to hear what I have to say and go home and apply it to your own life. But before we get into all of that, I need to know, does anyone here hate doing group activities? So we're going to start by doing a group activity. Of course we are. But it's really easy. And all I need you to do, I just need everybody to stand up, right where you're at.
Not as easy as it sounds. No, I can do it. Okay. Just the crinolines.
Special circumstance with the fancy attire.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is everybody's going to put ball your hands into fists. And you're going to put them on your waist or your hips. Okay? It's very easy. I know you look nervous, but it's going to be fine. So we're going to look up and over our left shoulders, and you're going to repeat after me.
You're ready.
That's awesome. Don't stop because we're not done. So you're going to look over your right shoulder and you're going to repeat after me in your best movie announcer voice. I have arrived.
I have arrived.
That's awesome. You're done. You're done. I won't make you do that again.
Don't do that work.
So that was really ridiculous. But don't we all feel better about being here now? So a few years ago, there was a research group, and they discovered that when we intentionally impersonate someone powerful, a superhero or a CEO, it tricks our bodies into a chemical reaction that makes us feel more confident. It is.
I do this.
It raises your testosterone, it lowers your cortisol, and it makes you more open to taking risks. And it increases your ability to analyze new information and find new ways to use that information. And I think that is super cool.
I have a quick question. Superhero. Like made up ones?
Sure. Sure.
I use Wonder Woman.
Yeah, anyone that is really powerful. So I love research like that. I love all research, and I get lost in it a lot. But one of the studies that I was reading recently was that as many as 70% of the U.S. population suffers from a condition known as impostor syndrome at one point or another. And if you're not familiar with impostor syndrome, it's that feeling that you get when you're in a group full of people and you suddenly feel like the least competent person in the room. Or you win an award and you feel like you just got it by the skin of your teeth, and if anybody knew what was going on in the background, somebody else would have won. It's the feeling when you get a promotion, but you feel like, it could have been anybody's promotion. And you just lucked into it. You were in the right place at the right time. So imposter syndrome is a feeling that we don't have control over our success. And that all the good things that have happened to us happen by chance. And it is a terrible feeling. It makes us feel anxious, and we worry that at any moment someone's going to find out that we don't know what we're doing. But I have good news. I have discovered there are 3 things that you can do to stop feeling like an imposter and instead inspire other people. They are very simple in concept. They're kind of difficult to put into practice, and they really take a lifetime to master. But you can start doing them today, and you can even start doing them before you leave Vault Books and Brew. So does anybody want to know what the first step is? Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So in talking about imposter syndrome, it is incredibly common, right? 70% of us will feel it at some point. So that means, there's a fair number of us. There's a portion of us that are either dealing with this now or will deal with it at another time. And the thing about really common problems is that they breed really common advice. And so as I've been learning about imposter syndrome, there's one piece of advice that crops up really frequently. And it's a blanket piece of advice. I've heard it in regard to relationships and careers. And that advice is fake it till you make it. Has anyone here heard that before? Fake it till you make it. Yeah, let's get real. Has anyone given that advice to somebody else? So, in learning about imposter syndrome, I have discovered that this is terrible advice. It is absolutely awful. Because when we're so busy faking it, we stop asking for help. Because we're so afraid somebody's going to know that we don't know what we're doing. We ignore our physical and emotional cues that tell us that we've pushed ourselves too far. And in the end, we feel misunderstood, totally unsupported, because nobody even knows that we're struggling. So the first step in getting rid of your imposter syndrome is to stop faking and to be real with where you are in your struggle. And you can do that right now. Because the second that you drop the mask of false confidence, you start opening doors for personal growth. And when you're growing, you can't help but inspire somebody. So whenever you're feeling like you're just treading water and you don't know what the next step is, or you don't know if you have the skills to make it to the next goal, be real about that. Don't fake it till you make it by yourself. But admit that you have no idea how you're going to make it. And ask for support. So if you're like me and you've been faking it a really long time, this sounds absolutely bonkers. Right? It's really hard to see how admitting that we're unqualified can inspire other people, and how publicly showing people that we have shortcomings, how that could possibly help us move forward. But we're going to think about that for a minute, because it is actually a step that not only helps you to grow, but inspires the people around you. So I want you to take a minute, and I want you to think about the most inspiring person that you know. And it can be anybody. It can be a family member or somebody you read about in the news. It could be a celebrity. It could be a Kardashian if you're into that. It doesn't matter who it is. But we're going to take just a silent moment. I just want you to focus on that person. Okay, so we all have our inspiring person, right? They're locked in. So what is it about that person that is so inspiring? Did they just show up one day and you're like, this guy is awesome? And you're just instantly inspired? Or did someone come up and absolutely they were doing cool things, but you started to dig a little bit deeper and you found out all the hurdles they had to overcome, how many years they had worked, and all the ways that they struggled to get to that moment where you discovered them. And isn't that where the inspiration actually comes from? So I'm going to tell you about my inspiring person. We won't make everyone go around and share, so don't worry about that. But I'm going to tell you about mine. And when I talk about inspiring people, I go a little bit off the mark, as in like everything I do. And so I don't talk about Mother Teresa or Bill Gates or any of, Gandhi.
Goodness gracious, let's
They're-
talk about Bill Gates. I'll be fine.
They all have very inspiring stories. They've all done a lot. But the person that I really like to think about when I'm thinking about people who are inspiring is the filmmaker Kevin Smith. So Kevin Smith was born to an average middle-class family in New Jersey. And as he was growing up, he watched his dad go to work at the post office every day. And he noticed that when his dad came home, he was a little bit more miserable every day. And Kevin decided he was not going to live that life. He decided he was only going to do work that was important and mattered to him. And in time, he discovered that the thing that he loved the most was film. So Kevin did what all good students do, and he buckled down and he got into film school. And then halfway through film school, Kevin dropped out. But he didn't drop out because it was too hard or because he was lazy. Kevin dropped out because he wanted to spend all that money that he was spending on tuition to make films. Now, decades later, Kevin's gamble has absolutely paid off. He has made some incredible films, and some, not that great. But as you look over the course of his career, you can see his growth. And I love paying attention to him because he really seems like someone who learns on the job, who picks up the skills by doing. And that is exactly how I learn. The movie that put Kevin on the map as a filmmaker was the movie Clerks. Now, when he was making Clerks, Kevin did not have the support of a studio. He dropped out of film school. He didn't have film contacts. And he didn't have a budget. So he, on his own, he maxed out 12 credit cards. He sold his prized possession, which was his comic book collection. And even doing all that, he couldn't afford to hire real actors. So he invited all of his friends and acquaintances to fill the roles for him. And despite never being shown in more than 2 cities, and despite having a cast of regular people and no known actors, and never being on more than 50 screens at a time, Clerks made $3 million and put Kevin on the map as an independent filmmaker. So what is it that is different with Kevin compared to all the other people who were in film school and finished and never made a mark on the entertainment industry? Kevin did the work. He didn't just talk about loving film. He didn't criticize how hard it was to break into the industry. Kevin went home and he picked up a camera and he made movies. Now, learning by doing is an incredible feat. It is very difficult. But it is exactly how I have gotten to where I am as an author today. And I know that it's something that anybody can do. So that brings us to our second thing that you have to do if you want to move away from imposter syndrome and inspire other people instead. Step 2 is to learn, but not necessarily in the traditional classroom sense. Way back when I was in high school, I read a study, because I liked research then too. And it has really stuck with me. And the study that I read said that if you focus 15 minutes every day on a topic, in 3 years you will have enough knowledge to be considered an expert. 15 minutes a day. I know people who poop longer than that. So whenever you're feeling like you don't know what to do or you don't know what the next step is, just focus 15 minutes a day on whatever that is, and in time that will improve. And as you're working on that, You're no longer an impostor. Then you're an apprentice. I'll give you an example. So let's say that you are totally starting from scratch, but you wake up one day and you decide that you want to start a company that sells solar panels. Okay? But you don't know anything about solar energy. And for all you know, it's black magic in little red and green wires. But you just feel this calling. You just really want to start this company. So you start focusing 15 minutes a day on it. A month from now, you could meet someone and have a really decent conversation about solar energy. You could know how it's collected, how it's stored, and how it can be used. A year from now, you would be able to put together a pretty good business proposal that you could share with potential clients or partners or investors. And then 3 years from now, you would know so much about the solar industry that people would start coming to you asking for advice. Now, if you have a smartphone or a laptop and Wi-Fi or a library card, then you have everything that you need to learn new skills. Virtually every topic has been written about. Tutorials have been made. Instructions have been given. And not only can a combination of YouTube tutorials and the books at the library help you expand your core set of knowledge, but with today's drive towards accessibility, you can go to industry conferences and conventions and talk directly to people who are driving the policies and making the products that are important to you. And the more you engage with those people, the more you will find industry leaders who are eager and hungry to help you. And that leads us to our third step about being inspiring. But before we get into it, we're going to take a step back. We're going to review the first two, make sure we got it locked in, we know what we're doing. So step one is to stop pretending to be perfect. And step two is to always be learning and do the work. It's pretty simple so far, right? So the third piece of the puzzle is a little bit harder. In order to be inspiring, you have to be willing to give constant positive support to the people around you. I was listening to an interview of Gerard Adams, and he is a very exceptional entrepreneur. And he was talking about how today, with access to social media, we are our own media platforms. So that means that we control the messages that all of our family and our friends and our coworkers see on a daily basis. And the technology that is probably in your pocket or purse right now, you can use to influence the way that everyone in your entire social bubble views the world. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed by negative news, or you're irritated by internet trolls, or you just can't get away from the ongoing arguments that are out there, take a minute, pull out your phone, and share a piece of your story with other people. And when you see people sharing their struggles online, reach out to them. Don't just respond with a frowny face emoji, which drives me bonkers, but offer them real support. Offer to listen if they need someone to talk to, or share with them struggles that you've had that are similar, and thank them for being brave enough to share their troubles with others. Because it is those messages that are full of love and concern that inspire people to make changes in their lives. So that's it. We have our 3 steps to getting rid of imposter syndrome and to be inspiring to other people. But unfortunately, there's one more thing that you have to know. And I'm going to tell you a story about it. So if you haven't known me very long, you might not know that a few years ago, my husband became debilitatingly ill. And through trial and error, he discovered that medical cannabis, or pot, whatever you want to call it, was more effective and more affordable to treat his symptoms than the Western medications he was taking. I am not joking when I tell you that one of his medications was $1,200 a month. There was not a generic option. It was not covered by our insurance. And it was not the only medication he was taking. So long story short, medical cannabis made a really positive impact on our family. And it inspired Keith to start his own cannabis-based company. And as a part of that whole thing, he decided that he wanted to share his story with other people. And so he started filming himself smoking cannabis and sharing the highs and lows of living with chronic illness. And he was doing this for months and months and months. And it seemed like no one was paying attention. The reporting on Instagram had flatlined. And Keith began to wonder if it mattered to anyone, if anybody was paying attention. So he was struggling with this, and he was considering giving the whole thing up. And we were at an event with a bunch of people that we knew, and this very little, quiet Catholic woman who would never do anything illicit in her life came up to Keith and told him that she watches him every day. She wakes up in the morning, she watches his video, and she takes his message as an inspiration as she moves through her day. It was really weird and completely unexpected.
Still weird.
So then, a couple weeks later, maybe it was a month later, we were in another state. We were totally removed from that group of people. We were talking to some other friends that we knew, and 2 more older women told Keith the same thing. But they're not clicking on anything. They're not commenting on anything. They're not sharing. They're not doing all those things that we look at our reporting for on our computer screen to see if we're making an impact. And if we had not been in those very specific conversations with those people, Keith never would have known that he has a growing demographic of middle-aged to elderly women who are watching him every day, silently. So the last thing that you have to know about being inspiring is that you have to be practicing all those steps even when you think no one is watching. Because they are. You just might not be able to see them. So I hope that what you can take away from all of this is that you don't have to feel like an imposter. And you can be inspiring to other people by being real about where you are, by constantly learning new skills, and by sharing genuine support with others. You can't help but be inspiring to somebody, even if you never find out who they are. So I want to thank all of you for coming out. This has been really great. It's really wonderful to have all of you here. I'm going to be here for a couple of hours hanging out and signing books. I write books. Jen back there sells books. She happens to sell the books that I write. So, yeah, hang out, and thank you again. Thank you for coming.